comfortably. Relax your body. Relax your mind. Remind yourself that you're going to try to practice concentration as a means of ridding the mind of discursive thoughts so that you can develop a very special motivation for listening to the class, so that the action of listening to the class becomes extremely virtuous. So even with that intention right from the very beginning, place your attention on the inhalation and the exhalation. And then when the mind is somewhat concentrated, bring it to another level of subtlety by now switching to the more subtle object of observation, the conventional clear light nature of your mental consciousness. Whatever thoughts come, just let them go. Focus on the space like clarity between the thoughts when they begin to slow down. Even if the thoughts are prevalent and rapid, you can, in a moment, let go of them by taking your attention and trying to perceive the subjective mind rather than the objective thought. Remind yourself that you're not going to pay attention to the eye consciousness, ear, nose, taste, body, none of the outer objects, nor be dissuaded, distracted by the inner discursive thoughts and appearances and images to your mind. Keeping in mind the clarity that lies beyond all the appearances, in that all these appearances arise within this clear light nature of the mind, defocusing on the objective thoughts, let them fade away. Certainly even the seeming presence, irrefutable presence of your body appears to your mental consciousness via conception as a mental image. Let go of that also. Focus instead on the clarity of the mind that's perceiving it, that allows its perception. Even the sense of the eye is appearing to you via a generality to your mind, mental image. Defocus on it and try to perceive the clarity of the mind that gives rise to that appearance. I think, although my mind is of clear light nature, I've been circling in samsara, cyclic existence, since beginningless time. Bewildered by the appearances that arise due to my karma, developing attachment for those that are attractive, that are pleasing, repulsion, anger toward those that are unattractive, that are displeasing, that hurt. And even when temporarily I've overcome the strong compulsion to engage in these delusions, I was working just for my own interest still, for some kind of superficial happiness, whether it be in this lifetime or even the happiness of nirvana. Now I have an incredible and rare situation, a human rebirth of leisure and endowment that I can use to develop the most high motivation, most pristine, pure, awakened mind of bodhicitta, even in an instant, through practicing bodhicitta or its causes such as Tonglen, or practicing proper devotion to the spiritual friend, I can accumulate more merit and purify more karmic instincts than perhaps even arhats are capable of. I can use this life to set up the causes for the realizations that will come in future lives and this lifetime. But the situation's very fragile. It's short-lasting compared to any kind of cosmic dimensions. Whatever time I have left to live is continually decreasing. So I have to practice now with a motivation to be able to benefit all living beings eventually by my achievement of enlightenment, and to benefit them along the way in whatever way I can. I'm going to participate in the lesson today on the stages of the path, especially the preliminary practices for meditation, so that through that knowledge, that wisdom that develops from the hearing of this, I can contemplate, develop a deeper wisdom and meditate on that, clear away my obstacles, my misunderstanding of Buddhist teachings, and get closer to that goal. And then relax, bring your attention back to the present. You have some companions here today, you see? Holy companions. The merit fields. So, before we... Oh, look who's here. Good to see you. Before we get into the material of today's class, let's go over the questions of the midterm. See how you did. How did you, Lisa, how did you? You didn't? What was that? Oh, I'm sure you did something virtuous. How did you do, Eric? You think? Do you understand the question?
I wrote something down.
You wrote something down? Tenzin? Was this a little easier than the Heart Sutra exam?
It's very easy. I didn't do it.
Anyone do the exam? Okay, Vajrapani people carry. Okay, release. Okay, good. Okay, maybe I was just calling on the people who hadn't done it. Were you going to do it? Okay. So now I'll have to ask you the question. So, Eric, could you read the first question?
What are the four main outlines of the text?
What are the four main outlines of the text? So, Dorje, this is your chance. Well, here it comes right at the very beginning of the Lam Rim. All of the 7 great Lam Rim texts more or less have the same outlines. Not all, maybe not all of them, but some of them. Also, Prabhupada Rinpoche's text has more or less the same outlines. So this is important to know. So Lisa, no, don't look at Frank's paper there.
I can't even read his handwriting.
You can't. It's no excuse. What are the 4 main outlines of the text? Think about it now.
I could guess. That's what I'm going to do if I say anything.
Okay, I want something a little more assured than guess. Elizabeth.
The greatness of the teacher, the greatness of the teachings, how to listen, and how to lead the disciples to the proper path. Is that right? I'm not sure.
Good. That's a good start. I say it's a good start because the actual titles are a little bit longer, but that's a good way, like a mnemonic. Is that pronounced right? Mnemonic device to kind of remember. So, the greatness of the author. What did you say? The teacher, the author, in order
To show that the teachings are that's a reputable lineage.
Yeah, that there's an authentic source to the teachings, right? Was that the reason? First one? Yeah. And so who's the author of the text? Lisa? You have to answer some.
I do know, yes, Lama Khapa.
It's not a t-shirt? It says showing the greatness of the author. And who is the author? It's showing the greatness. Whose greatness is being shown? Lama Tsongkhapa's greatness? What do you think? Diana?
Tisha.
So in a sense, Lama Tsongkhapa, if you say who wrote the Lam Rim Chenmo, or the Lam Rim Ding, we say, the middling Lam Rim, you'd have to say Lama Tsongkhapa was the author, right? But in that outline, who's being referred to by Lama Tsongkhapa, he was referring to Atisha. He was taking Atisha as the author of these teachings, this kind of Lam Rim teachings, because Atisha had wrote what text? Do you remember? The lamp unto the path? Sounds very Christian. The lamp unto the path. The lamp illuminating the path to enlightenment, something like that. Jangchu Blamdrun. Okay. So, Bodhiprata Badipam. You remember Deepa? Sometimes we talked before, that's one of the light offerings, lamp offerings. So, Deepam means lamp. Then the second outline was Eric, what was the second outline?
Greatness of the teaching.
Greatness of the teaching in order.
To motivate a student.
Or to motivate the student. Carrie?
I put down how to listen to the teachings and how to teach.
Okay, that's not the second outline, I don't think, is it? How about Mark? The first one is the greatness of the teacher, and Elizabeth had said the second one was the greatness of the teaching, the Dharma teaching. Louise?
And what is the respect for the instruction?
So showing the greatness, and that involved these different kinds of greatnesses of the teaching, that it, you could escape from the great pitfalls, and it showed that all of the Buddha's teachings were non-contradictory and were meant for advice and so forth. Those were the greatness of the teaching, these Lam Rim teachings. Lam Rim teachings, many lamas. I remember, I may have mentioned before, Geshe Rapten, one of my teachers who passed away many years ago, he was Lama Yeshe's, I believe Lama Yeshe's first teacher. You know that? Did anyone know Geshe Rapten here? Geshe Rapten. So Geshe-la, he was a yogi and he actually was a debating partner of the Dalai Lama when he was older. He was born a simple man he was born a boy, it wasn't a man. He was born a simple person in Kham, and he was like head of his. If you have a chance to read his autobiography, it's very, very fascinating. He was kind of quite a cowboy, kind of a Khampa cowboy when he was young. He used to, they would be able to shoot from the horses while the horse was riding, and did all sorts of amazing things. Walked for many months to Lhasa to enter into the monastery there, and became a very great scholar and meditator. Really achieved a lot. Geshe-la used to, when he was meditating in Dharamsala in McLeod Ganj, And he had a little hut there near his guru's house, Khepri Ling Rinpoche's house. And he spent a long time there meditating. And he said that one of his great regrets of this lifetime were that there were some days when he didn't meditate on the Lam Rim. You might think, well, oh, he maybe didn't meditate on the completion stage, or didn't do his, some kind of secret practices, or didn't do self-initiation or something. He said there were some days when he didn't meditate on the Lam Rim, because that's like the greatness of the Lam Rim. As you look at those various qualities, it's like the nectar, like the cooling water. When your mind is all disturbed, problems, you're sick, your baby left you, whatever. You take the Lam Rim teachings and pour into your heart, and you can start to see some, even in catastrophe, you can see there's a way of using this. This is my karma ripening. I'm being dumb to be upset about this. I'm going in a long journey. Whatever time it takes, all of this can be dealt with. So it's very, very great. Third outline. Leo, you weren't here last time. So Elizabeth, what did you say the third outline was? How to listen. So this is Carrie's, was somehow... Is that how you said? That was what you thought was two. How to listen and how to teach, right? How to explain the teachings. And then the fourth outline, do you know?
The disciples on the path.
Well, it doesn't say the greatness. Okay, I was thrown there for a second. It just said how to lead...
Disciples, the students on the path.
Okay, good.
So
Mr. Pat.
Is how to listen and how to lead instructions one in itself?
No. How to listen and how to teach. So, for instance, how to teach, or the disciplines a teacher should undertake in giving the teachings. Okay, but the fourth outline of the text goes beyond that. How the disciple is led on the path by the actual teachings. That's sort of like the whole rest of the path, right? That has two main parts. One is how to rely on the spiritual teacher, which is the root of the path. What do we say? The spiritual teacher, or the reliance, however you have to think about. And then, what's the other one? How the student is led in the actual teaching, something, right? Okay, so what was the second question? Frank, what was the second question? On the exam, sorry. This is what was the second question? When?
About Atisha's teachings in Tibet.
Okay, what did you say?
Well, I pulled three things out of Atisha's life, and then I guess I really didn't pay attention to teachings in Tibet. So my three qualities were before he got to Tibet. At age 15, after listening to Dharma Kirti's Ocean of Reasoning, one of those logic texts, he defeated a great monk in debate and became well known. And at age 29, he was urged by various deities and gurus to become a monk because it would be very beneficial to sentient beings if he did so.
Is anyone 29 yet? How old are you? Georgie's 29.
That's 27.
Anyone else 29? Louise, you're 29? How old are you? Oh, okay, you missed. 29 is when Lord Buddha left home also. So, Georgie, you have 2 years now to get it together.
To leave home.
We'll help you. You know the tanka up in the memorial shrine of Lord Buddha cutting off his top knot? No, it'll help you. So who can say something about Atisha's, who answered it in what Atisha did in Tibet?
I didn't write it down, but...
Okay.
The place was a mess when he got there.
Sewage was gone.
They were sacrificing animals, having wild sex, and the teachings had just gone to this crumble state. What's wrong with that?
Sacrificing animals is what's wrong with it.
In Tantric, they were having this Tantric wild sex. The teachings weren't the proper Tantric teachings.
Right. So in other words, there was the misconceptions that, that there were some people that were taking the Tantric teachings in a wrong way and giving license to both what they called, liberation. So it was liberating a being's mind when slaughtering it. So that was, and also eating flesh and so forth. And also engaging in the wrong way, thinking that Tantra was just the practice of sex in some ways, as is kind of a lot of misconceptions in the West, I think, about that. Sometimes I've heard in New York City, I've never been invited to one myself, but I heard that sometimes people, I haven't had the initiation. Sometimes, people sometimes say, oh, I'm having a Tantra party this weekend, or something like that, as though, it's just something you would just get. It's just like it's a new age thing or something. That's not the real meaning of Tantra at all. So that was going on, and the teachings had disintegrated. One of the kings in one of the regions, what was his name? Remember? Zhangchub-e, I think, right? Zhangchub-e had tried on many occasions to invite a great scholar from India. So he investigated who's the best one. And the name of Atisha kept on coming up. And so he had sent parties to try to invite Atisha who had failed in the past. And finally, when a party had gone there, enduring all sorts of hardships to get there, with an offering of gold. Not so much like, who is it that's just in the newspaper today? Richard Pearl? Some of these people that work for the State Department and then they get rich, if you get them on your board of directors, you have to essentially give them gold, It's not like that today. In order to hire someone that you have to give them a big salary. It was a sign of respect in order to show respect for the teachings and to show that they were serious. Atisha had many responsibilities at the monastery. He was one of the keepers of the gates that had to debate with the people who came to the gates, and it was one of the great scholars. He had previously spent so many years not only in scholarly pursuits and study and meditation, but especially studying the precepts of bodhicitta in where? Sri Lanka? Sumatra. Is that close to Sri Lanka? Way, way different. Sri Lanka is south of India. Sumatra is where? Indonesia, right? So he had gone there at the request of the king who gave up his life. You know the story. His nephew had tried to collect, the king had been captured by a rival king and who wanted a ransom of gold, equivalent to the size of the king's body. I'm not sure if it was the weight of the king's body or just the physical size. If it was the physical size, it would be much more, right? It must have been that. And I think he said, the nephew said, I've gotten this much, up to here. I just have to get the amount of your head. And the Zhangchub said, look, this will never end. Better that you take that gold that you've got and invite Atisha to Tibet. So Atisha came, and while he was there, as Tenzin said, he helped to overcome all of the misconceptions about not only Tantra, but set straight again the pure teachings of the path to show how all of the three levels, not as is here the three kinds of persons, but the three kinds of vows, the Vinaya, the Bodhisattva vows, and the Tantric vows, would be complementary. One of the things that Atisha used to say, that the three vows were like a rosary wrapped, I can't get around my wrist 3 times, like a rosary 3 times wrapped around your wrist. They're all can be concurrently kept, all the vows. It's not like if you have the Tantric vows, you can't have the other vows or something. He also wrote this very, very great text, The Lamp of the Path to Enlightenment. Why did he write that text? What was the instigation?
He had to send it back to his monastery in India. I guess that's what they wanted when he split.
Is that right? Okay, Elizabeth's going to That's good. Okay, so you could debate tonight. Okay. Elizabeth, can you embellish that a little bit?
No.
No. Okay, you better not. Okay, this is your husband. Okay.
Everything he says is perfect.
He's your guru. He's not heavy. He's my husband, huh? He's my guru.
The teacher was supposed to go back,
Right.
but there was a border war, I believe, going on, and so he could not leave, and so he, I think the monastery asked him, or he summarized the path,
Right.
and that's what
Very
this
good.
is.
So, indeed, there were some kind of requests going on, but that Atisha had been only given permission to go a short time. He really had the intention of staying longer. He would have liked to stay longer. He was on his way back. There was a war at the border, and he wasn't able to cross. And as a sort of like in compensation to that, he sent back this text that he'd composed while in Tibet, The Lamp of the Path, that summarized all of the essential points of the path. And when the great pundits at the monastery received that text and read it, they were all amazed. And it's not only was it very concise, you could memorize it, but it had the meaning was incredibly deep. It had all of the essentials of the path, and it was that text that sort of set out this particular idea of the three kinds of persons very clearly. It's not as though Atisha thought it up for the first time. The person of beginning scope, lower scope, intermediate scope, and great scope. Do you remember what that means, Eric? The person of initial scope would be what?
His own self-interest.
Work for his own self-interest. So Bill Gates is a person of initial scope. I don't know. Well, he might be a bodhisattva, but close. The individual of initial scope, talking about really entering into the path, is a person who is able to, what's the word? I want to say forego all the time. Pleasure. Defer gratification till the future lives. In other words, working for the happiness of future lives, willing to put up with hardships, not getting angry, not getting overly attached, trying to observe karma, especially to find rebirth as a human or a god in future lifetimes. Might be what we call many people practice, if they are practicing religion in some way, making offerings so they'll be wealthy in the future, or as in the Judeo-Christian tradition, to be born in heaven, or to have, something in the future like that. The person of intermediate scope sees that even if they're born as a human or god, all of that pleasure ceases. Eventually you'll have to suffer again. They make the decision, they renounce all of samsara. The first person has a limited renunciation of the happiness of this lifetime. It doesn't mean that you don't have any happiness. You say, no, I've renounced happiness. Don't give me anything. It's not like that. It's just that renouncing happiness of this lifetime as a pursuit. Okay? The person of intermediate scope renounces the happiness of cyclic existence and strives for nirvana. The person of great scope develops the altruistic mind of enlightenment, seeing that even if they were to attain nirvana for themselves, that would be a very limited, selfish pursuit. The Buddha himself called it the Hinayana, the lesser vehicle, just to work for one's own nirvana. When he taught the Mahayana teachings, when he tried to incite individuals to enter the Mahayana. So those are the three kinds of individuals that the text is laid out in. So there's many other things you might have said there. So what was the third question, Carrie? Or was that the third question?
That was the second. Third is list the ways in which this Dharma teaching is great.
Okay.
Teaching.
Okay, so this is one of those four outlines that were the four outlines of the text, was the greatness of the teaching in order to generate respect for the oral instructions, for the teaching. So now this is asking, what are these ways now?
I actually answered the wrong question. But you can tell that it's a great teaching because I think it's easy to understand. It makes the points very clearly and concisely.
Okay, it's well written, in nice handwriting, very clean, good typeset. No, that's not what it is. Try again, give you a second chance.
It inspires people.
Oh, they're very casual about studying. It's not very precise. That's okay. That's good enough. Don, do you think you know something?
Everyone to understand all the teachings are free of contradiction.
So one of the greatness of the Lam Rim teachings, which are embodied in the Lam Drön, so Atisha being the author of this kind of genre, is that this teaching can show the individual that all of the teachings of Buddha are not contradictory with one another, such as when Buddha taught the lesser vehicle path, or here you see there's individual paths that even one person has to practice at different times. So that's one of the special greatnesses that you can understand in more and more depth. That's one. What else?
We want to understand that all the teachings are instruction for practice.
So how would you explain that in a nutshell? Why is that great? Aren't the teachings meant for practice?
That all the teachings, variety teachings, are to use as practice, not picked and chosen from, not to denigrate the Hinayana.
Well, that's maybe one of the other points, about not to denigrate something. But here, I think one of the other points, tell me what you think. There's the tendency sometimes of thinking, I'm not, George is teaching Heart Sutra this term or something, or so-and-so is teaching these scholastic texts. That's not what Buddhism's about. I'm going to go and receive some oral instruction from, some deep meditator, and I'm going to go to the cave and meditate. So the great yogis and yoginis, the great practitioners of Buddhism, saw that the teachings of Buddha themselves were what you practice. And there is a tendency of thinking that sometimes it's just scholastic, but everything that Buddha taught can, in analyzing it, can help you to practice the path. And understanding that is very, very difficult. And Lam Rim can help to show that. Remember, I mentioned a couple times what His Holiness said in Pasadena recently about when he was commenting on Nagarjuna's text. Do you remember what he said? That quotation I quoted? He said, "This is worthy of study, even every word." Like if you have a very good translation, that's why translation is very important. Or if you can study the Tibetan and you can, every word you say, why did he use that word? Sometimes there's very, very great significance there. So that's good. And then another greatness.
Easy to understand the Buddha's intent.
Easy to understand the Buddha's intention, what the Buddha had and what his final intention was. Was there another one? Or is it only three? From the great wrongdoings of sectarianism, abandoning the Dharma, and so forth. Yeah, well, that's good. So those are worth reviewing, going back as you're, Then, Sister Thea, what was the next question? Do you remember?
What are the three faults of a recipient of the teachings that must be abandoned?
Okay. Sometimes you might see the word receptacle. Did I write recipient? Yeah, recipient. You could say recipient. The Tibetan word is ne, which can mean vessel. A vessel. You ever hear that translated sometimes? A vessel for the teaching? Ne. That's the Tibetan pronunciation. That's quite good. Okay. Sounds like the ne koan. Never mind. You don't know. Okay. There's a famous koan in Zen Buddhism called the mu koan, isn't it? Okay. But this is the ne koan. So what are the three faults of that have to be removed for one to be a proper receptacle or vessel or recipient of teachings?
One must abandon not paying attention to the teachings. And
so what kind of fault? Is there an analogy, some kind of discursive thought?
Yeah, like that. Just listening to the teaching and thinking what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight, or who I'm going to call after the teachings, or yada yada, like that.
Yada yada, yeah.
So not
to abandon the yada yada. So, Tenzin, do you ever thought of that? What's that? What's the analogy of that? That's
Upside down vessel that won't hold anything?
Is that like a vessel that is turned upside down, that one? Or is that like a vessel, or is that like a dirty vessel?
The dirty vessel would be the third one, which is you can still be paying attention and you can still have understanding, but if you don't keep up with the teachings and let them fade, then you eventually lose them.
Well, that's like what? That's like a vessel with a hole in the bottom, right? If you're, it's like going in the proverbial one ear and out the other. So one could be like the vessel upside down. That would be like not being mindful of what's being said because you're, like you say, you're paying attention to something else. Or there could be other reasons also.
Too.
Which one?
Not paying attention, the information kind of going in one ear and out the other.
Well, that's a different part. Even though you're paying attention, here you're not paying attention like Thea said, perhaps because your mind is not paying attention to the teaching at all. You're just thinking about something else. You're there. The second one was maybe you're paying attention, but you're not keeping it in mind. You're sort of listening, but like a vessel that has a hole in the bottom. And third, with wrong motivation, thinking I'm going to listen to this in order to become famous or a scholar or, in order to see some faults in the teaching so I can refute this gosh darn Buddhism. Who do they think they are? With different kinds of motivations like that. Could be like a vessel that is still got some grime in it. So even you pour some nice pear nectar. What's really nice? Apricot nectar is a little too acidic for me. What's pear nectar or what would you say? Coffee. Was it guava? Guava smoothie. Okay, whatever. If there's some junk in the cup, you can get sick from that afterwards. So if you're contaminating the teachings with misconceptions, wrong motivation, that's like having an error, a fault that has to be removed from your mind before. Sometimes I've heard people talking about, it's not one of these, but sometimes people mention this. Have you ever heard the Zen Story? Some scholar came to see this Zen master, and he was just all full of himself with all of his, his study or whatever and spouting. And the Zen master, really, there was no room in this man's mind to listen to anything the Zen master was saying. So the Zen master was pouring him tea, something like this. You know this story? And what happened? Kept on pouring, then what happened? Pouring. Overflowed, and the guy said, "What are you doing?" And what did he say?
I think he just made a connection, a simile, a theorem. A theorem.
Okay.
Between the overflowing full cup and this fellow's mind.
Right. So there's no room, and if you're all full of preconceptions already, that's kind of like what we would say the fault of. This another one of the faults of maybe. Could be related to several of the faults, so maybe the fault of having wrong motivation and so forth. If you're so full of your own opinions and ideas, it's as though there's nothing that you can, there's no more you can take it. You just ignore certain things because they don't fit with what you've already ascertained in your own ideas what's correct. So it's just like that those teachings just flow out of you. Maybe that's like a hole in the bottom also, so you could just see. But that's not one of the ones that's used as an example in Tibetan Buddhism, here in the Indian Buddhist tradition. Okay, that's good. So then what was the next question? What were we up to, 5? Diana, what's the 5th one?
What are the 6 discriminations that must be cultivated in listening to the teachings?
So did I have some numerological significance here? For question 5, I asked the 6. Was question 4 asked the 5 or something? No, okay.
6 you asked for 10.
Oh, okay. So, well, you'll have to... You'll have to check later whether there was some deep numerological meaning to the. There wasn't. I'm just teasing. Okay. So what are these? The 6?
The 6 discriminations that must be cultivated in listening to the teachings.
So which outline does that come in the Lam Rim text?
how to listen and explain a teaching center, how to listen to the teaching.
Right, so this is very close to the section on the three faults. So sometimes when lamas give teachings, they may mention about the three faults. Sometimes they may mention about these 6 discriminations. Sometimes they mention both, but this is something that's worth knowing. So what are these 6 discriminations?
And I'm sick or like a patient, that the teacher is like a doctor, that the Dharma is like the medicine. Before you need to put the Dharma into practice, you have to take the medicine. I'm not sure if that is right. It's something about the greatness of the teacher. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then number 6 is praying that the teachings last for a long time.
Okay. What's the 5th one? Oftentimes people...
Those are excellent beings.
But is it seeing the Guru as a Buddha too? Can it be seen that way?
Geshe Sopa Rinpoche said you could think that also, but especially to think that the Tathagata, which is one of the many names of the Buddha, right? So the Tathagata mainly is referring to Shakyamuni Buddha, who founded the teachings, was what? Not just a great guy. Excellent being, noble being. Okay. I think I mentioned to you before, if you have this kind of attitude, that's very, very useful when you go into the teachings. Rather than thinking you've got it on top of everything, you've got enough money in the bank, you're on a roll, everything's going good, and you're just coming to this class. I don't know why you'd come to the class then. But if you're thinking you're coming that, look, I've got a chronic disease I've had since beginningless time. Anger, attachment, ignorance, hatred, jealousy, pride, depression, low self-esteem, complacency when things are going well, depression when things are not going well. From the view of Buddhist perspective, what the teachings can give us, you can see this is like something that has to be eliminated from our mind, that kind of sickness. All of the delusions, we're like a chronic disease. Even if we were temporarily not under the influence of attachment, we can point out someone else, oh, look at how much attachment so-and-so has. Poor thing. Or, oh, look at how angry so-and-so is. Do we do that here? Poor thing. As though we don't have that. Maybe we don't have it at this time, but we have the seeds, the potential of every single kind of distorted mind within our mind streams. Now, we're chronically ill. Some of them maybe are in, what's it called, remission. Sometimes they're more apparent. So to see oneself as sick, that's very, very useful. It's not guilty. Remember, to think I'm guilty. That's not the point here. To think somehow this is something I've got to eliminate. It can be eliminated. The Dharma is the medicine that can eliminate that. And the Buddha, the teacher, the founder, was the doctor, the supreme doctor. Say, as you take refuge, especially to see the Dharma as the medicine and the Buddha as the person who prescribes the correct medicine to get out of each of those. So it's very useful. And also, you have to take it. Like I mentioned to you before, when I wrote a letter to one of my teachers in Italy many years ago, mentioning how I was having some disturbance in my mind, and he said, even, all the teachings you've had, if you just keep them like a big sack of medicine on your back and you never take them, it doesn't do you any good. So sometimes I noticed recently in my kitchen, I have a whole bunch of vitamins that when I was doing retreat, I was taking every day, but then I stopped taking, So it's a little bit, that's not as harmful as not taking the medicine of the Dharma, but you could see it. If you don't take the medicine, you're not going to get any better, right? Okay, that's good. And then what was the 7th question? Who did I ask here? Tom, did you? 6th?
List the 10 qualities of a Mahayana guru as taught by the Mahayana Shukalamkara.
Cool. So what are those? Can you do that? Or can some of them? Can you remember? This is a very good list to memorize.
They're pacified, meaning they have the training in ethical conduct.
Good.
Thoroughly pacified, meaning they have the training in concentration.
Good.
They're serene, meaning they have the training in wisdom.
Oh, wait a second. They're pacified. What's it? Pacified.
You can put them
Serene?
different, you can use different words.
Really? What was the?
Oh.
Isn't the third one thoroughly pacified or no?
I think so. I
So
had
this
number
is
two.
this is it said it was a Shiva and Nyawa Shiva. What's the first one?
You could say
No, but what's,
pacified.
no. What's the first one? Disciplined. This is the first one called discipline.
In ethics.
Yeah, but what's the short word in the Sutra Alamkara?
It's disciplined.
Discipline. So that has to these two are sort of pacified and thoroughly pacified. Yeah, good. And then
They have more good qualities than the student.
well, yeah, here Yundan qualities here probably refers to knowledge, because if you're relying on a teacher who knows less than you, you know, you might. Sometimes, if they have some quality, they don't have to know everything more than you. If they have some qualities, like Atisha's guru Serlingpa actually was holder of a lesser view, the Chittamatra view, and in that sense he didn't manifest teaching the higher view. So you might say, well, he had less knowledge than Atisha. Atisha held him as the pinnacle of all his teachers because of his other good qualities. So it has to have more qualities than the disciple. That's good. Then?
A wealth of scriptural knowledge.
Wealth of scriptural knowledge. So not just someone who knows, one small text, but can quote from many, many sources and so forth. Yeah.
They're energetic or enthusiastic.
So what does that mean? Just like upbeat?
They rejoice.
No, that's not true.
They rejoice in when people create merit. They're happy about that. They take a lot of pleasure in virtuous action.
What's enthusiastic mean here? Is that what it means? Venerable?
Or it's enthusiasm for teaching.
Venerable Rita, what do you think? Oh, she's in Sana, sorry. Who has an idea? Pat, do you have an idea what that?
No.
Enthusiastic, Frank?
Guess tireless in promoting the Dharma?
Tireless, yeah, kind of in teaching, right? Enthusiastic to persevere in teaching. Then?
Skilled at instructing students and explaining points.
So, some teachers are obviously have better skill, and that's something that we should try to learn how to, to pay attention to what people need and so forth, to be skillful that way. Then?
They don't get tired of explaining the same point over and over.
I'm leaving. Yeah, exactly. So they have patience in a sense, exactly, patience, and a very special kind of patience that, patience and also enthusiastic perseverance to keep, even if the students need to be guided again and again, even if they make a mistake, not to just disown, oh, well, you didn't learn, forget it, not like that. Then?
They have great compassion.
They should have great compassion, not just working for their own happiness, their own career, like maybe college professors, some college professors. Some college professors are very compassionate. And finally?
They teach for love of the student and compassion towards the student rather than wanting money or honors.
Was that the same one, is it?
Yeah, it is, but I don't know the last one.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. That I'm impressed. I'm impressed. So, Carrie, there's a good example. You should check with him at the tea break how he studies. Be a little more precise. That's very good, Tom. What's the 10th one, or the one that he's left out of his number 10? Diana?
Reality.
They have a thorough understanding of the nature of reality, so have a direct insight, if possible, into emptiness. That would be the ideal Mahayana guru.
How is that? I kind of wonder, how is that distinct from the thoroughly pacified?
Yeah, remember we talked about that. I'm not going to answer again. Talked about it so many times. We talked about it a couple times before because it's interesting. It comes up all the time. It looks like, if you look at Geshe Sopa's teachings, it looks like one is talking about, the one thoroughly pacified means trained in the union of calm abiding and penetrative insight. Because the mind becomes more pacified then. Here, this is referring to an insight into the meaning of emptiness. Also, the earlier one could mean insight with tranquil abiding and penetrative insight into the selflessness of persons. Some people interpret it that way, and this one in the emptiness of phenomena. But or maybe from the Prasangika point of view, you'd have to say insight into the gross selflessness of persons, because if you have an insight into selflessness of persons, according to the highest philosophical school, the Prasangika Madhyamika, you have realized emptiness itself, right? Remember that? That's the subtle object of negation of personal selflessness. If you don't know what that means, we'll have a break in a couple of minutes. You can ask Don, or you can ask Leo at the tea break. And then, next question. What was the next one? Mark, what was the next one?
In what two ways is a guru to be relied upon?
Right. For money and what? Fame. Fame and money. No, what is a guru to be relied?
Practice and thought?
The guru should be thought of as a root of knowledge, yeah. But here, this had a particular outline that was talked about that I think Mark's got here. What was it?
In practice and in thought.
In practice, how's the guru to be relied on? Yeah, there's a way to rely on the guru in thought. And just out of curiosity, was that the next question? What are those, or no? What are the ways to rely on the guru in thought? The outlines from the Lam Rim. Basically, you see in the succession yoga and in the commentary to Lama Chopa, perhaps when Rinpa Rinpoche is teaching the commentary to Lama Chopa, you'll see also, there's two things that you have to, in thought, you try to generate faith by thinking of the qualities, by understanding the qualities, remembering the qualities, and generate respect by remembering what? The kindness, how the guru is kind in various ways. So in Sutra, in the Vinaya, there's 3 ways the guru is kind. In the Bodhisattva point of view, there's the guru is kind in 3 ways. In the Tantric point of view, the guru is kind in 3 ways. That's not mentioned in the text, but that will come sometime in the teachings. And then the next question, who took, Louise, what was the next question?
I think, so did we kind of combine the last one? So there's explain how it is possible to train oneself to see the guru as Buddha.
That's the question. We haven't gone. Oh, okay, we skipped that one. Okay. So how can you see the guru as Buddha?
I think by being open to the teacher, that you can receive blessings from the Buddha, even if the teacher is not Buddha.
So you keep your mind open to the possibility because you know that you can receive teachings if you view the teacher as enlightened being. I think that's true. You see, these different kinds of reasonings that you can use. What else? Anything else come to mind?
Also is that it's very critical to focus on the good qualities of the guru and not any of the faults, because it generates within one's mind stream over time the mind that focuses on what is a good quality and eventually seeing one's guru as a Buddha, one eventually will able to see those qualities in oneself.
Yeah. It's a little bit like the analogy that's used in the daytime. Because of the brilliance of the sun, you can't see the stars. So if you focus on the good qualities, just as we focus on the good qualities of our friends and on ourself, what we think are the good qualities, who knows if they are, it's as though any kind of shortcomings we have become very, very small. So as you say, it's not so much to ignore the faults of a teacher, but don't focus on them. If you focus on the good qualities, if you think you see a fault, you focus on the good qualities, and then it's almost as though the faults you can kind of see in perspective is almost becomes, how do you say, invisible, and sometimes you can actually see it as a quality. Think, well, what I thought, maybe the guru is getting angry for a reason. Maybe that person needs to have a wrathful teaching, or maybe the guru is doing this for some other dharma reason. Was there one more question? Yes.
Focusing on the good qualities of the guru, is that what is meant by developing faith?
This is one of the techniques to try to develop root faith. So first of all, you have to go through a progression of possible reasonings. I want to succeed. I don't want to fail. In the world, even for worldly trades, you need a teacher, right? You have to go to a cooking school or carpentry school or something. Did you go to university to study electronics? No. What do you do? A computer science? You had some teachers, right? I mean, you could try to open up a book, but sometimes, even for worldly things, we need personal assistance, sort of a teacher, let alone for a path that we've never tread before. We want to succeed. We don't want to fail. We know that all of the great teachers of the past have relied on gurus. Then you have to see if it's possible. It is possible, because if you focus on the good qualities, if the person is a qualified teacher, it is possible to see them. Just as you see your friends' good qualities, ignore their faults. There are great benefits of that. And let's see. Yeah, thinking in ways like that. My own perceptions, my own opinions are not reliable. Just look how many times you've decided something, that's the way it is. Someone doesn't like me, or this is the way it is, and later you find out it's exactly opposite. Does it ever happen to you? Never. So if you can make mistakes even about very obvious, concrete things, certainly about something as subtle as the existence of the guru. Let's take a little break. Does anyone have any questions? How are we doing?
I have a question. What's this image doing here?
Okay. What's this image doing here? Because as soon as we finish the exam, we're going to continue talking about the preliminary practices at one point in which you visualize the field of merit. So say for instance, as a preliminary to meditation, when you're going to meditate, you might say, well, meditate, just have no thoughts. That's from the great Indian tradition of Buddhism. That's one of the misconceptions that thinks, we'll see later, that analytical meditation, thinking is to be avoided, that you just have no thoughts. Or maybe you think that you don't do any stabilizing meditation, you just think. Both of those are erroneous. To meditate, you have to alternate between analytical meditation and stabilizing meditation. To make it successful, you have to have certain preliminaries. So that's what we were talking about last time. The preliminary practice is to accumulate merit and to purify negative karma, and to receive the blessings of the Guru Buddha. So one makes requests. So in doing so, the field with the field with respect to which, is that right? Respect to which, to whom you create merit are the enlightened beings, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But if they're not physically, you don't see them physically present, you visualize, because the omniscient mind is always present, you visualize the Guru Buddha surrounded by all of the manifestations that we hear about, the Yidams, the Buddhas of this eon, the 1,000 Buddhas and the 35 confession Buddhas, the 8 medicine Buddhas, all of the Buddhas, and then the Bodhisattvas, as we talked about before. Sometimes, and when you're just visualizing in the merit field, they're on one level field, like in a Pure Land. Later, like in Lama Chopa, when you do the offering to the guru, the first taking of refuge, you visualize the merit field like that. Also in Jorcho, you visualize the Buddha surrounded by all of these deities as though on a ground with encircling. Later, then you visualize the central figure as the guru, at whose heart is Shakyamuni, at whose heart is Vajradhara, at whose heart is the syllable Hum, and so forth. And they're on what's called the tree of assembled gurus, you might say. So that's kind of like this representation. Here on top is Lama Khapa, and different. It's actually like a huge lotus, the petals of which are progressively kind of like those different things you have it like at a, what do you call it, smorgasbord? You know, the plate, the one set of plates big, and then on this pole there's another plate a little smaller, a little bit like that. I can't think of a better example. I'm just thinking of food all the time. Okay, so anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, did we cover all the questions? We didn't cover.
Number
Okay.
10.
So what was number 10?
What are the benefits of relying on a Mahayana spiritual friend?
Okay, so Mr. Pat Ryan.
Somebody to help you through a vegetarian meal.
Someone who can help you through a vegetarian meal. Is that your answer? Oh, okay. Okay. No, it was. I would
That
have,
came to mind, I have to admit.
because normal person wouldn't think of having. So Mahayana spiritual friend would never eat meat, right? No. Okay.
Just joking. Just joking.
Okay. No. Okay. I'm just checking.
But
Okay.
it was the first thought through my mind.
First. Okay. So what are some of the advantages?
Well, having friends and gurus to rely on for study, teachings, and advice, and also people that kind of have a shared
For teaching, study, and advice.
advice
Mm-hmm.
and/or debate.
And/or debate. Mm-hmm. You don't want to debate too rigorously with your Mahayana spiritual friend.
And then hanging out with people that have a like mind.
Hanging out. Okay. Someone to hang out with. Yeah. The Mahayana spiritual friend. You know what hang out means? Like hanging 10, hanging 5. I learned that recently. Hanging out. I'm not sure what hanging out is. Maybe that's something else. Okay, now that's pretty interesting. But if we wanted to be a little more precise, they're actually mentioned in the text. How many benefits? Anyone can. This is more original. Anyone could give that spiel. Yeah, that's true. But not anyone. Someone would have to know first, and if you knew, that would be very helpful. So, so Louise knows, is it?
No, I don't actually know that.
Okay. So, who did you answer that one, Thea?
Yes.
Okay. So, what are the benefits? What were the benefits that you recall? How many benefits are mentioned classically when it talks the benefits and defects of relying, and the benefits of relying and the defects of not relying or properly relying?
The benefits would be one comes closer to Buddhahood.
Right, closer to enlightenment.
One does not fall to the lower suffering realms,
Sounds good.
and one is not overwhelmed by one's afflictions, and
Okay.
negativities.
Mm-hmm.
And one will it ensures that one will not be without future teachers.
Right, creating that karma. That's one of the very, very important things. Create the karma to never be bereft of.
And then one collects merit and accomplishes goals that are not really just for oneself only, but they're for others as well.
Well, here we say temporal and ultimate goals. So, so even the wishes of this lifetime, like I think I told you the story of always wanting to see Mount Everest when I was in Nepal, but always putting it off because I was trying to study with the guru. But even doing that, by the way, even my temporal goal were fulfilled. And of course, whatever temporal goals. But what else? How about pleasing all the Buddhas? If you rely on a guru, would the Buddhas be pleased? Or they're not impressed by that? Nothing special. Why? Tickles them, tickles their fancy. Why do they like that? Because the Buddhas see that way to get closer to enlightenment is through reliance on a guru. And when one practices that way, the example sometimes when, the lamas sometimes say, in like a naughty child, who's the parents are used to the child being naughty. Who's a parent? Do you have children? Have they been naughty at some points? Never. Okay, they're not a good example. Okay, so anyway, maybe you can imagine some children who are usually naughty. The parents are kind of used to that, and suddenly the child starts acting in a nice way. Suddenly it looks like they got their act together. The parents so pleased. They've always wanted the child to profit. Now suddenly the child's doing something right. So in the sense that one is following a path that is the sort of the root of all of the practices. How many benefits? We sort of jumped around to the benefits. It was pretty much in order. What did we leave out? Not be harmed by outer. Would that include bad friends, or is that a separate one, or is that the same thing? That one won't be overcome by outside evil spirits, and sometimes we talk about maras. I think I mentioned this before. Soquel Rinpoche used to say, we may think the maras or this evil spirits are something evil, like the devil, have big fangs and horns or something like that, carrying what they carry, tridents or something, big tail, lizard skin or something. But actually, say for instance, if you're planning on practicing the Dharma, and one friend, very attractive friend, comes and says, "Oh, don't practice the Dharma today. Come on, let's go out and let's relax and go out and go to the disco or something like that." Soquel Rinpoche used to say, that's the real devil. The devil can come to you in the guise of something that looks very attractive. So also relying on the spiritual friend protects you in many different ways like that. But when we talk about guru devotion, we usually talk about these, how many benefits? 8 benefits, right? So it's very good. This is another thing that's worth kind of putting into mind. Let's see here. We'll just read them off here. So the benefits relying on the teacher. You become closer to Buddhahood. You will please the conquerors. This is on page 87 of the translation. You will not be bereft of future teachers in the future. The future teachers, I'm not sure that is. You will not fall into miserable realms, lower realms. Neither bad karma nor afflictions will overpower you. That's 2, I think. Through mindfulness of bodhisattva deeds and by not contradicting them, that means by in reliance and emulating your guru, your collection of good qualities will continue to increase. You will reach all your provisional and final goals, temporal and final goals, and after obtaining virtue, through serving and respecting the teacher, with thought and practice, you will accomplish others' welfare as well as your own. Oh, that's the one you were referring to, right? So that's worth studying. I remember many Geshe Darge's texts we used to, when we were studying in Dharamsala many years ago, that was published at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives. What's it called? An Anthology of Well-Spoken Advice. Was that what it was called? Or, yeah, maybe that's the one. Alex Berzin had taken notes, and when Sherpa Tulku and Kamalang Rinpoche had translated for Geshe-la for many years on Lam Rim. So it's all of there's enumerated the 8 benefits and the 8 defects. So in some presentations of Lam Rim, like I think Louise or someone was asking why, or no, Diana was asking, why don't we put that at the beginning of the meditation? So sometimes it can come, if that motivates you. Think of the great benefits. You get closer to enlightenment and be protected in many different ways. You can emulate the guru and practice the bodhisattva deeds, but particularly the blessings of following the guru now. You create the karmic causes to find gurus naturally in future lifetimes. Many people can't find a guru now, isn't it? They always ask, how can I find a guru? They don't have the karma. Even there are real gurus around. And many times, even if a real guru is there, they can't see them in any kind of pure way because they didn't practice that in previous lives. So practicing to see the guru in a pure way, with that pure view, creates the karma to actually see actual Buddhas, actually be guided in the real form, like Manjushri appears, or Maitreya appeared to a Sangha. At first, Maitreya appeared to a Sangha as a dog. Maybe at first he didn't even see anything. He was in his cave, but remember the story? He said, where were you all that time? All these, how many years did he meditate? 12 years of meditation. He said, I was just there, look at my robes, and here's all your spittle on my robes, he said. You all used to spit in the corner? I was standing there all that time. So he didn't even see him. Then later, when his karma was better, he saw him as a dog. Later, he could see him as this immaculate, body. So we're the same way. Okay, good. So let's get back to the actual material. So how did you do? Anyone get 100%? Dorji got 100%? What do you think? Anyone think that they'll have to study a little bit more?
Yes.
Carrie, maybe? Leo? Good, okay. Eric? Okay, that's honest. Okay, good. Okay, good. So let's give you an idea of the kind of questions that might be on the final exam. So last time we were talking about actually getting down to the outline of how to lead, or how to say, here, this is still part of the section on how to lead the disciple in the path, right? One part was how to devote oneself to the guru, which is the root of the path. And then one part was, what? Was that the first outline? How to rely on thought, how to student the teacher. Okay. So, right. So how to lead the students with the actual instruction had two outlines. How to rely on the teacher, the root of the path, which we had finished essentially, right? And what's the second outline? What's the second outline of that? How to lead the students in the actual instructions, and then?
How to sustain the meditation.
The stages of how the students train the mind, which has how many sections? So if you look on page 356, if you have the text. So this is the fourth. It starts in chapter 4. Starts the fourth main outline. How to lead the students with the actual instructions. So A, how to rely on the teacher, the root of the path. That has two outlines: a somewhat elaborate explanation for developing certainty, and 2, a brief indication of how to sustain the meditation, which is what we're on now, right?
Right.
And then within that, there's the whole of chapter 6 is refuting misconceptions. The first part here is the actual way of sustaining the meditation, which is what we're doing now. Then coming refuting misconceptions about meditation. And of the meditation session, a brief indication of how to sustain the meditation has two parts. No, sorry. Here, chapter 7 is B. Where is A? How to rely on the teacher, right? That's the root of the path. And then the stages of how the students train their minds after having relied on the teacher. Okay, so if you make a flow chart, Don, I think, and Dayani had made for some of the courses, you made this big computer printout. If you just do something like that yourself, you draw it, you can start to see the interconnectedness of the outlines. So here we're talking about the actual way of sustaining the meditation, what to do during the actual meditation session, the first outline. Second would be what to do in between sessions. What to do during the actual meditation session has 2, the preparation or 3, the preparation of the actual session and what to do at the conclusion. So what are we on right now?
Actual session, how to sustain meditation.
I think we're still on the preparation, right? Okay, so the preparation, remember there's 6 preparations that a tradition that Atisha brought from India. So what were those? What were the 6 preparations? Do you remember? Yeah. Wash yourself. I was trying to lead you in the wrong path. Cleaning the meditation place or just cleaning meditation? Arranging representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. So that's like setting up the merit field, making like it a pure land as much as possible, and setting up the merit field, in the external merit field, in a sense, the representations. Then, secondly, is making offerings without engaging in the 5 wrong livelihoods, especially deceit and so forth. Okay? Then what's third? And arranging them beautifully. So when you're doing retreat, that can be very, very, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can collect wild flowers. You can offer water in clean bowls that have been cleansed with incense. Usually there's disciplines in doing all of those things. Maybe you know. We learned when we were at Kopan in the early days, right from the beginning, what one should do. You clean the bowls that you're going to offer water in, right? And you can put some incense in them so that they are each individually, and say there's an incense coming up. Each of them is sort of like already, instead of, remember the fault of the vessel being filled with dirt or grime or filth? Here, actually making it as though very purified. And you put a little bit of water in the first bowl. You never put down a bowl that's empty in front of an image of the Buddha. So you pour most of that water into the second bowl. You put that bowl down. Then you take the second bowl and you pour water. You leave a little bit in there. Place that down. And you arrange them as straight as possible. The karma, it said, arranging the bowls very straight helps to create the karmas of having the major and minor signs of the Buddha. These physical kind of disciplines that one engages in. You don't put the bowls too close together. There's a karma of the fault of maybe being too close to the guru and seeing faults and so forth. You don't put the bowls too far apart, haphazardly, that create the karma to be far from the guru. So keeping mindful of that, they say maybe like the size of a barley grain between the bowls, all lined up very, very neatly. And then once they've been set down, then you start pouring into the first bowl. And you could think, like this, I'm going to fill up the minds of all sentient beings with realizations and good hearts and the solution to their problems, leading them to enlightenment. It's so delightful also thinking, as you're pouring the water, actually physically imagining that. Remember when we talked about Lam Chung last time, small path? The cleaning, actually discipline of thinking as you're sweeping up the dirt. Like this, I'm going to sweep up my delusions and the delusions of all sentient beings. You actually physically see that. You're motivating in that way, so your action of cleaning becomes incredibly meritorious, rather than just becoming neutral karma. Otherwise, you're just sweeping the kitchen and sweeping your meditation room. It doesn't create necessarily any virtuous karma. So also filling the bowls, thinking like that. And when you come to the lamp, if you light the lamp, think, as you light it, think, just like this, may I light the lamp of wisdom in the hearts of all sentient beings, in the minds of all sentient beings. And imagine the offerings, the lights filling all space, all to the places in the universe where the light of Dharma has not spread, especially Washington and other places like that. And you can just offer 7 bowls, or you can offer individual representations of things. You can offer flowers when we come to flowers in the offerings, and you can actually offer a lamp. You can offer perfumed water. You could offer food, and so forth. They don't necessarily have to, like for instance, if you want to offer flowers in a big vase, it doesn't have to be in the straight line. It can be separate also. But all of those different offerings are done not because the Buddhas are somehow some kind of samsaric gods who think, who are going to be disappointed if they don't get their flowers today, or, if they didn't get their Snickers bar, they're not going to grant you blessings. The reason for making offerings is to create merit with respect to the fields of merit. So cleaning the place and setting up representations, making offerings without deceit, arranging them beautifully. Then what's the third one? Sit properly. Is that right? So what's sitting properly mean? Keeping your mouth shut? What does it mean, sitting properly? So sometimes it's called what are the different names you've heard? The 7-point? Okay. 7 aspects of the Buddha Vairocana. Who's the Buddha Vairocana? Do you know, Georgie?
Is he one of the 5 Dayani Buddhas? I don't know if I pronounced that right.
That might be how you pronounce it, yeah. Dhyana Buddhas?
Diana.
No, I'm just joking. That was that? Anyway, it's another era. Diana. I remember some song when I was in high school. Oh, Diana, Diana. There's a Western Buddhist who went to Tibet, Lama Govinda. I'm not sure. I think he was German, wasn't he? And he wrote several books about Buddhism, and he kind of popularized this term, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, because they all look like they're in concentration in dhyana. As far as I know, I've never seen, and Tibetan Lamas I've spoken to, there's no correlate to this in the scriptures anywhere. Call them Dhyani Buddhas. It's kind of his own, but as everyone thinks of them that way, they're called the 5 Buddha families. Sangye Rikanga, I think, usually. So what are those 5 Buddha families, you know?
The Padma family is Amitabha.
Well, what are just the names of the Buddhas we'll talk about here? What are the 5 Buddhas?
There's
Vairocana,
Amitabha,
Akshobhya,
Ratnasambhava,
and Amoghasiddhi. So in Tantra, they have particular meaning related with our 5 aggregates and so forth. Purified form of our 5 aggregates and different things like that. There's a whole, if you study Tantra, there's an incredible richness there. There's also certain samayas, or sacred words, when you take tantric initiations with respect to these 5 Buddha families that you take. So Vairocana is said to be the purified form of what aggregate? The form aggregate. So he is seated, his seating posture, when Marpa came to Tibet, he'd studied with the great Indians in India, right? You know the story, what happened when he first came? And he was kind of dissing the other Tibetan meditators. He said, let alone my understanding of the teachings, even my sitting posture is more meritorious than your meditations. He says, because I'm sitting in this 7-fold posture in which Vairocana sits. Sometimes it's talked about the 8-fold posture. What's the 8-fold? Something to do with the nose? No, venerables can't speak. No, has to do with sometimes there's a breathing meditation. We call the 8-round breathing, 9-round. Okay, I'll leave 1 round on. 9-round breathing meditation, which we'll talk about in a while. What's the 7-fold posture of Vairocana? What are the disciplines that are get involved in that? Did you read in the text?
No, but the spine is straight.
Spine is straight, so you could be lying down, right?
But you're sitting.
Sitting, okay, sitting with crossed legs. Ideally in what's called the Vadra Asana, right? in Tibetan, in Sanskrit also, in Buddhism, they don't call the lotus posture. Remember I was telling you the lotus posture is a completely different posture. This is called the Vajra Asana, or the half of Vajra Asana, where one leg is slightly, not completely on top. Which leg do you put first on the other thigh? The right on the left? Is this right? Right on the left? Left on the right, or vice versa? Is it, Venerable? Oh, you know. Actually, left goes first, then the right, isn't it? And because when you're putting your palms down, also the bottom is the left hand, according to the Mahayana tradition from Tibet. Some traditions they do actually say to do it the other way, right? Here they like this with the fingers touching. So cross-legged, spine erect. That's two. What else?
The shoulders. Is the elbows are kind of out a little bit? Is that not one of them? And then
That
the
can
hands are like.
So let's say the hands are at the navel, with the thumbs touching at the level of the navel. Okay.
The neck is kind of straight with the chin down a little bit, but not too far down.
Okay.
Is that one?
That sounds like one of them. Okay.
Is the tongue on the mouth is closed, and the tongue is.
You can't talk?
I can try and talk.
No, I mean the mouth is closed. You said. Mouth is not open, not completely closed, but it's the teeth are not clenched. Mm-hmm. The tongue is on the palate, right? Why is that? Just to make it more difficult.
I think so you don't drool, so I mean your mouth doesn't get dry and it doesn't get too wet.
It doesn't get too wet. Because if you have really good concentration, I don't know if you notice, if you have very good concentration, you begin to salivate. And if you don't have a particular method to prevent that, the saliva can emit from your mouth or can cause you to gag a little bit. So as you put the tongue on the palate, the saliva naturally flows down the tongue, down the throat. So that's one of those. The eyes are where? Open or shut?
On the back of your head.
On the back of your head. No.
I think they're not too shut, not too open, letting little bit of light and focus.
Well, here's not too open.
That's not too open.
Here's too open. No. Here it means you don't. If your eyes are completely shut, there's a tendency of developing the mental factor what?
Drowsiness.
Mental factor drowsiness. Might be good. Yeah. Sinking, mental sinking, and so forth. It can lead to sleep actually, because when things are dark, it's easier to fall asleep. If the eyes are open, there's the possibility of developing the fault of what? Distraction, because of the visual field and so forth. So when opens eyes, at beginning it's very difficult. Keep the eyes just slightly open so some light comes in to look at a neutral area in front. Sometimes, especially in yoga and when you talk about other disciplines, you actually focus along the sides of the nose toward the tip of the nose. Not necessarily to look cross-eyed to make yourself, more uncomfortable, but that it helps to focus the mind also. Okay? So we'll sit next time, you see if you can find a list of these 7 postures. We'll go over them next time just to be precise. But one of the ones also is called, sometimes we talk about 8 postures before taking refuge and so forth. The 8th one would mean the mental posture, which would mean eliminating discursive thought through the 9-round breathing meditation. So this breathing meditation, we can start to do sometime. At least Lama Tsongkhapa's recommends. Even here at the beginning of Sutra, it has a relationship to Tantra that to help to eliminate discursive thought. You imagine breathing in white light through, let's say, the right nostril, up the nadis to maybe down to your navel chakra. And here it's not just the breathing meditation as we've been doing before where you simply watch the breathing. This is actually conscious, like pranayama, watching, keep holding the breathing. Hold that white light there and imagine that the white light fills your body and burns up all of the negativity within your mind. Actually, there is an effect of this, because this can affect the winds that your mind relies upon. So imagine that white light, the blessing of all the Buddhas. You imagine all the blessings of the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, Dalai Lama, your gurus, comes in, fills you up, that radiates out, burns up all of the faults within your nadis, the winds, bindus, everything. And imagine that at the navel, that wind then crosses across to the other channel. You know what I'm saying? There's two channels that are thought to start at the nostrils, that come up to the crown of the head, then down parallel to the spine, in front of the spine, through the throat chakra. There's a crown chakra, there's a throat chakra, then a heart chakra, very tight, close to the spine, which is where we try to meditate on when we do our Mahamudra meditation. Down to the navel chakra, and then down to the secret place chakra, other chakras. So as you breathe in, you imagine it come down to the navel rather than the heart, and you hold it there. Imagine as the wind then goes to the other side, and you're about to breathe out, imagine all of the negativity that's been burned up, sort of the soot, or soot. Soot. I want to be careful with Pat here, I pronounce wrong. So all the soot comes to the left channel, and you imagine as you breathe out, now this air that you breathe out, you're breathing out all of your defilements and soot out, past Santa Cruz Beach, past Georgie's house, out past the universe, out, so it has nothing to do with you any longer. So there's some discipline in breathing out like that, so you don't gag, So you can begin by using your finger to hold one of the nostrils to help. Then you move the nostril, the other nostril. Move the finger to the other nostril, not move the nostril. And then you breathe in through that very same nostril. Left one, the same. You shouldn't make as much noise as I made. You hold for some time, imagine it filling your body with white light. All of the soot comes to the right nadi. Then you can put down your hands and breathe through both nostrils. Now both of them are filled, and this time you imagine that the air enters into the central channel at the navel. And as you breathe out, don't imagine you're breathing out not air from the nostrils, but that as you breathe out, the air is actually entering into the central channel, and all the conceptual thoughts are being dismissed. You do that, that's a cycle of 3. You do that a second time. And then a third time, so that becomes a 9-round meditation. You could do it more abbreviated in one way. You can imagine, so you don't have to use your fingers. Once you have some good concentration, you just imagine going in through this nostril. Breathe in once, and as you breathe out in 3 segments. First, like the gross stuff. Then, still coming out the left nostril. More subtle stuff. Then, the last. That becomes 3 rounds, like that. Breathe in here, then out 3 times. Then in both, imagine it comes into the central channel, more subtle comes into the central channel, more subtle comes into the central channel. So you'll see in different texts, different ways that the 9-round meditation is explained. The yogis and yoginis who do very high tantric meditations, if they go off to retreat, hermitage to do retreat, they may do this meditation along with another meditation, Tibetans called Tongra, empty body meditation. Tong means empty. Ra actually means enclosure or like fence. So visualizing one's body as empty, just like the outline of one's body is there. Letting go of the solidity of your body. You meditate like that for some time. Then you alternate that with a 9-round meditation. This is a prelude to being able to do very high tantric meditations without the danger of coming down with illness, different kinds of psychic problems. When you have too much feeling of solidity of the body, the nadis are not cleaned and so forth. But this particular meditation is very useful to calm the mind, to get rid of discursive thoughts. So you can imagine that in some explanations it mentions, first you imagine all of the faults of attachment, all the winds upon which your minds of attachment are, and the secondary minds that are associated with it are breathed out. And then all of the winds upon which angered repulsion, hatred, anger, all of that, just breathe that out. And then with the two, what that goes into the central channel, all of the winds that support your self-grasping, both personal and grasping to a self of phenomena, all of that absorbs into the central channel. So it does have an effect on the mind. When we were at Kopan in the 70s doing the first meditation courses, I remember Lama used to have a more simplified version, just breathing in white light, holding, and imagine filling up your body, burning up all the junk. I want to say something else. Then breathing out all the garbage, going out beyond Nepal, beyond the world, beyond the solar system, beyond the universe, so it had nothing to do with you. Then breathing in all the blessings, again, all the white light, Jesus' blessing, Buddha's blessing, your Dalai Lama's blessing, your Guru's blessing, all of the virtuous qualities of the Bodhisattvas, of the hearers, their renunciation, their bodhicitta, their wisdom, filling you up. So when I did that meditation, I remember feeling very, very, that was a good breathing meditation, that's another one, feeling very forceful about it. I can remember, just breathe in, try to hold that good stuff in as long as I can breathe out. Maybe I had taken maybe I'd smoked drugs before, I don't know. Maybe that was the reason I was trying to not waste anything. I don't know. There was something, some residue in my mind. But there was that feeling, there is really a very strong psychological effect of breathing in, even on the psychological level, let alone on the physiological level. In Tantra, there is definitely a very great purpose of that. So that sometimes is added as the 8th posture, the mental posture, you might say. So that's the breathing, to get rid of these discursive thoughts. Usually it's called the 7-point posture of Vajra Asana, but sometimes it's called the 8-point. Yes?
The visualization of the merit field occurs after this, before it, after?
I know it sounds like anticlimactic, but it's still coming, yeah. It's still coming. Okay, so cleaning the place, obtaining the offerings, arranging them beautifully, sitting upon a comfortable seat in a suitable posture, absorbed, and then taking refuge in developing bodhicitta. So we'll talk more about that later. Then 4th, imagining seated in space before you. Here's the answer to your question. Seated in the space before you. You visualize, here it says imagine, it can mean visualize, are the gurus of the vast and profound lineages, as well as immeasurable Buddhas, Arya Bodhisattvas, Pratika Buddhas, Shravakas, and those who abide in the Buddha's word. So, Venerable George is skillfully moving the camera toward that. Do you see? Can you all see from there? Pat, you can't see. Take a quick peek. So this is the merit field from what particular tradition? Is this a Kargyu merit field, or Sakya, or Nyingma, or what? Kadampa? It's actually Gelugpa, because although Atisha is in it, the Gelugpa was originally Lama Tsong called it the new Kadampa tradition. Nowadays there's another Lama in England who calls this tradition the new Kadam. Actually, they called the Tibetan, the Gelugpa, the new Kadampa, and then they called it the Gandempa. because it was at Ganden, that was the seat of the monasteries, Tushita, that was the monastery, Lama Tsongkhapa's main monastery, and then that kind of got morphed. It's not clear. It was called Gelug, the virtuous tradition. Gewa means virtue, Luk means tradition. So here in the center of that lotus tree is Lama Tsongkhapa. Is that right? Or am I looking at the thinking? Okay, Lama Tsongkhapa. How is he seated? He's seated differently than in the posture when he is in that you visualize when you do Ganden Lagema. You know, the short guru yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa when he comes down from Maitreya's heart. How are his hands there? You can see on the cover of this book, right? That's from the cover of this book has Lama Tsongkhapa as he appears in the merit field in Ganden Lagema. You know, the short guru yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa. So there, his hands are both at his heart, right? In the merit field from Lama Chopa, one of his hands is holding a vase of nectar at his waist, at the level of his navel, and the other hand is in the teaching mudra, right? Or am I wrong? Is that right? Or both of them are at? You're right. Right? Okay. So that's slightly different posture. One represents, in a sense, that he's in meditative equipoise while teaching. So that kind of means, that kind of mudra kind of means, whoa. It means he's able to perceive two levels of truth at the same time, kind of. So surrounding him, I need one of those laser lights. Huh? Do you? No. So here's Lama Tsongkhapa, and from his heart there are little rainbows coming. So if it's just the merit field in general that you take refuge with, it doesn't have to be like this. It can be just Shakyamuni in the center. Here in Lama Tsongkhapa's heart, can you see, Dorji, can you see in there? What's at his heart? Can you actually, for the people on the television?
They can see it.
What is it?
Shakyamuni Buddha?
Does he have heartburn, or what is it?
Yeah, it's really bad heartburn.
What's at his heart?
It's called Nirmanakaya heartburn.
Thank you. What's at Lama Tsongkhapa's heart? Shakyamuni? And what's at Shakyamuni's heart?
That we can't see.
You can't see this too. You have Vajradhara and at his heart is another syllable, hum, and so forth. So sometimes we call. Have you ever heard the expression Lama Lobsang Tubuang Dorje Chang? So Lama means the outer aspect of your guru. Lobsang means what? Tsongkhapa. Lobsang Drakpa was his ordination name. Lobsang Drakpa. So here you're imagining your guru who is in the form. Here's your Lama. You're thinking, this is my Lama, who is actually Lama Tsongkhapa, Lobsang Drakpa, who is actually emanation of Shakyamuni, who is actually emanation of Vajradhara. So it's sort of like the different levels of practice. Externally practicing the Vinaya, internally practicing the Bodhisattva's deeds as taught by Shakyamuni in the Nirmanakaya form, secretly practicing the tantric teachings in the depth of your heart, not exposing it to others and so forth. So on his right, as you're looking at it, that would mean on your left, right? Am I right? Is that right? Yes, you're not. His right is the lineage of extensive deeds or vast deeds. So up here is the center. If it were on a plane, on one side there's another throne and Maitreya is seated on it, and around him are all these gurus. So first close to Maitreya is the first human of that lineage, which is a Sangha, and then a Sangha's brother, Vasubandhu, and the other gurus of that lineage. Down to, who is Atisha in down here, or is Atisha somewhere else? Is Atisha in this lineage? Remember, He is, right? He's in the Indian gurus that are surrounding, okay? And then there are 3 lineages of Kadampas in this field. The Kadampas were the followers of the word, the Ka, the pronouncement of Atisha, who were, or the Buddha, who were bound by, Dampa means to be bound by or vowed. So that's one of the ways of calling them. They were the disciples of Atisha, the tradition that he started. So there's 3 lineages. What are the 3, do you know the 3 lineages of the Kadampas? Okay, what are they?
The Lam Rim. Here it says the treatise followers and instruction followers.
Okay, so we say the ones who studied the great texts, the extensive concourse of, like what we're studying in some of our other courses, the Abhisamayalankara, the Sutralankara, all the sutras and so forth, they're called the Shumbawa. Shung is a Tibetan word that can mean highway or can mean the vast collection of texts. So that's what's called there, the students of treatises or something like that? Those are the Shumbawa, treatise followers. Then there's the Lamrimpas. So they were individuals whose predilection was not to be so interested in studying all the texts. They were satisfied with studying a presentation such as Atisha's Lamp of the Path. So they're called Lamrimpas, those who studied the stages of the path. That's their main practice. They might not, they'll study quotations as we are here, but they might not have studied all of the texts in detail as some individuals do. There are other individuals who were more, some of them were less intelligent, some of them were more intelligent and actually were very close to the teacher and just followed the teacher's oral instructions. Sometimes they served the teacher, sometimes they were meditators who were very close to the teacher. They were called the Mengakpas. Mengak means, we learned in our Tibetan class, it means oral instruction. So they were, what are they called there? Instruction followers. So it doesn't mean that they just, the guru said, clean the latrine, put in the Ethernet cable or something. It's not like they just did that. It means that they followed very brief instructions, maybe even more brief than the Lam Rim. So the Lamrimpas would be ones that studied the Lam Rim texts and understood all of those stages. Mengakpas can be that they were less intelligent, can be that they were even more intelligent. You can't make a blanket statement. You might say, oh, they didn't study as much. They might have had imprints from other lifetimes and they were actually following the guru's instructions just to get to the core of things. So you can kind of see there are 3 groups of Kadampas here, right? So here's Maitreya. It's surrounded by the first group of Indian gurus. And then the followers of Atisha, the Kadampas, there's these 3 lineages. I've forgotten to tell which is which. Maybe you can see in the text. Okay, yeah, Drondemba and Potawa and Chekawa, but maybe you can see. We'll talk next time which is which. And then from them, all of those 3 lineages, just as Atisha received both of these lineages, the extensive deeds and the profound wisdom, Lama Tsongkhapa received these 3 Kadampa lineages. So he is right here. Actually, this is Lama Tsongkhapa here, right? But this is also Lama Tsongkhapa. And this is also Lama Tsongkhapa. You might think he's getting a little bit dizzy here. He's everywhere. Okay? And yeah, the people watching the tape are. And these are the lineage after Lama Tsongkhapa up until the present. And where's the empty seat? This is Dorje's seat over here. This is auspicious. This, the next lineage holder of the Gelugpa tradition, Dorje Greenberg. He's going to hold the Sakya, Nyingma, and Kargyu lineages, everything. Maybe next life, I'm not sure. Okay, so on Lama Tsongkhapa's left, coming from his heart, so if it's just on a plane, and you think of Guru Shakyamuni in the middle, there's a throne off to the left, upon which is the Bodhisattva Manjushri. And he is surrounded by the Indian gurus of the profound view. Starting with whom? Nagarjuna and his disciple Aryadeva, and you can see the lineage gurus of that, leading up to Atisha. Atisha also received that. Then the same lineages here. These are the same guys, same Kadampa guys. Turns out they were all guys at this time. There were no ladies in this. They were great meditators, but in this patriarchal tree, they're only guys. Then Lama Tsongkhapa again, in the same lineage from Lama Tsongkhapa coming down to the present. And there again, there's Dorji's seat to be the next holder of the profound lineage. So Atisha, how can you tell Atisha? Remember we talked a little bit? He has an implement, a famous implement. Remember what it was? Has a basket and what? And a stupa. Because when he went to Tibet, I mean, he used it all his life, but whenever he had any violation of his vows, he always brought out the stupa. It's quite a big stupa, and with relics and so forth in it, and blessed. And he would do confession before the stupa. And he also had a sort of like a basket that he kept his various things in, including maybe his tantric secret practices he kept secret. So where's Atisha up here? Say he must be over here.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so this looks like Atisha. Yeah, there's the, is that the basket or is that the stupa? I can't see. I don't have my glasses.
The stupa's on top of the basket in this picture.
Oh, okay. And over here, is it the same? See, the blue robe, this is Drondemba. Is it separate there or the same? A little bit different? Okay, you have to see different pictures will be different. His disciple Drondemba is also there. Is that Drondemba? A layperson. All the rest are monks, right? So Drondemba is wearing a chuba. Okay. So those are the two lineages. Then surrounding them, if it's on just one level, would be the yidams. And usually, first of all, the four main yidams in the Gelugpa tradition. What were the four yidams that Lama Tsongkhapa practiced? Do you know? Yidams means meditational deities, main ones that he recommended. Guhya Samaja was actually his main practice, although people don't realize that. Chakra Sambara, it's also called Hiruka. Yamantaka, which is what, Dorji Jigje. Mm-hmm.
And is it Hey Vajra?
And usually Hey Vadra is also the fourth one sometime. So those four deities are here, I think. Here are those four deities here. They're supposed to be in the four directions around Lama Tsongkhapa. And then on the pedals below that, they're on the same level as Lama Tsongkhapa. Then below that are the deities of the four classes of Tantra. Here, this is the lowest class of Tantra, because you can see somewhere in here, you can see Avalokiteshvara and Tara and different things. Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, highest Yoga Tantra. And then above, even though these four deities are part of highest Yoga Tantra, they're special practices of Lama Tsongkhapa, so they were in the four directions around him. And then after the yidams come the manifestations of the Nirmanakaya aspects of the Buddhas. The 1,000 Buddhas, the 35 Buddhas, the 8 medicine Buddhas. Below that, the Bodhisattvas. Where am I here? These are Tantra right here, right? This is Buddhas. These are the Bodhisattvas, including the 8 great Bodhisattvas who you all know now. Right? You know the 8 great Bodhisattvas, Tom? Oh, that's very good. Skiti Garba and all these, okay? We had, you're not taking the other class. In the other class, that was one of the questions on the midterm. Then below the Bodhisattvas are the Pratika Buddhas. Wait a second, these are the Buddhas, these are the Bodhisattvas. These are the Pratika Buddhas. So they're actually higher than the hearers, who are the next line, because they have a deeper realization in general. Below them are the Dakas and Dakinis, the Tantric Sangha, although it doesn't mention that explicitly in the Lam Rim. text, it says those who are bound by the Guru's word, which includes the Dakas and Dakinis and the protectors. So these are all of these beings are not just ordinary beings, they're all meant to be enlightened beings, emanations of the Buddha's mind, the Guru's mind. So remember when we talked about root Guru before, I mentioned that one of the ways of understanding that, one of the ways of understanding root Guru was the individual that you could imagine, that you had the greatest faith in, that you could imagine, easily understand all of the other manifestations in the merit fields as being emanations of that individual. Tenzin.
Like a beginner, how would you possibly try to remember this in the morning when you get up to meditate?
You would have to get to the stage of advanced beginner. At first, yeah. So at first, this merit field sounds like, oh boy, if I have to do that, I'm going to become a Christian.
Yeah. Can you?
So you don't have to do, this is extensive, okay? So there is one visualization where you visualize just Buddha alone, Shakyamuni Buddha alone. It's called heart essence, yeah. In Tibet, when I was in Tibet with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when the Tibetans saw Westerners in robes, they went, they were very, very happy. So you can visualize the Guru who represents the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and the emanations of all of these others. Then later, when you get that visualization clear, you can start to expand around Shakyamuni or Maitreya and Manjushri, surrounded by these lineage gurus. There are different ways of visualizing. Sometimes, for people whose minds are fairly competent, you visualize, say, the mandala. If you're visualizing a mandala or something, you visualize the whole thing, even though it's not clear, and the clarity increases over time. Some individuals start with one point, maybe the third eye or one point, and then they add pieces. Same thing with the merit field. You can have the one guru, one like the Buddha, and then add others later. Or you could just always keep it as one if you're a Mengnakpa, say, or a Lamrimpa. You just want something very simple. But the complexity also is an object of your samadhi, of your concentration. Let's end here, and let's do a dedication of merits. You're calming your mind, thinking of the merits that the vast merits that you created in doing such a good job on your midterm exam, motivating before the class, creating virtue during this class, even if your mind might have wandered. The motivation at the beginning, most important. Think of the merit not only that you created today, the merit that you created in past lives that has not ripened yet, the merit that you will create in the future, and make a strong decision. I'm going to dedicate that. I want that to ripen in such a way, may it ripen in such a way that it always enhances my spiritual practice, overcoming my ignorance, my strong attachments and addictions and lust, my hatred, my anger, my repulsion, my depression, my pride, my jealousy. May it become a cause of overcoming my problems, developing all good qualities, always for the sake of others, seeing my equality with them. So along the way helping them with the bodhisattva deeds to achieve the perfect goal of enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings, so I can spontaneously, perfectly lead them to everlasting, meaningful, deep, blissful happiness of enlightenment. And as the Bodhisattva's practice, seal that dedication, the conventional dedication, to solidify it within the collection of wisdom. Meditate on the emptiness of the three spheres, the emptiness of the merits created, the emptiness of the goal dedicated to, the emptiness of the act of dedication.